Many healthcare companies face the challenge of improving member engagement and retention to boost health outcomes. But today, we're going to discuss Vee. Vee is a top enterprise AI platform used by major health organizations, including health plans, health systems, care management, and focus on patient and customer activation, enrollment, engagement, retention on a larger scale. Our guest today is Spencer Honeyman. Currently, he serves as the Chief Commercial Officer at Vee. Beyond his role at Vee, Spencer is an active member of several advisory boards. Lessons for health tech entrepreneurs. Without further ado, let's jump in. Making a difference in healthcare requires collaboration between researchers, startup founders, and policymakers. This is what Delta is about: hosting conversations with leaders on the path to serious innovation. Hello everyone, my name is Rupen, and I'm a physician on a journey to meet people who are making a delta in healthcare. Spencer, I'm so happy to have you here today with me.
Same on mine, Ruben. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the show, man. Welcome to the show. Let me start. So let's start about Vee. In the first beginning of the show, we're going to talk about Vee, and then we're going to shift toward you. But tell me, what really inspired you to join Vee?
So I'll tell you the actual story, that what Vee's founder and CEO and I call our meet cute story. So I was actually at CES over like 6 years ago, and in a stroke of luck, I was advising a company and I was in their booth, and it was right next to Vee's booth at CES 6 years ago. And so one of the folks representing them I connected with, and he was like, you should really meet Omri, our CEO. And I joined the advisory board 6 years ago, and 6 months after that was on full time. And I think the reason I made that decision so quickly, number one, is the people. So I've always had a passion in my career for the intersection of health and technology, and how that can be used to help people live healthier, active lifestyles, which was very aligned with our mission at Vee. But also, I think we're working on really hard problems, which are how to engage people in healthcare, wellness, sort of the full health ecosystem. And I woke up in the morning and fell asleep at night, sort of tackling this problem, and felt it was something I wanted to devote myself full time to.
Awesome. No, I completely agree with you. I think like in healthcare, and I can talk about that like nonstop as a physician, right? Engagement is the one of the hardest, if it is not the hardest, literally truly affect us also as a healthcare providers. Like if we have a patient who's engaged, shows up, like that's so rewarding. But once the patient is not engaged and they are not showing up, or they are not on the platform, or they are not coming to the clinic, so that will like create that sense of frustration, and you don't know what to do. Just like keep booking with the patient, and like it is a big dilemma. I'm sure you have lots to cover there. But so you, since we're talking about engagement, in my mind, I think like patient engagement is really difficult, but I want to hear it from you. Like, what do you think is the most challenging part for you since you joined Vee for the last like 6 years?
Yeah, I think echoing your sentiment, we have a sign in our office that says being healthy is hard, to remind us when we're, and even if you're a data scientist or someone with probably double my IQ working on really hard technical problems, the end goal is to help people live healthier and active lifestyles. So I think with Vee, what we do is we work with large health organizations. So we're a B2B company, and those health plans, health systems, providers, disease and care management programs, pharma companies, wellness, they have their patient or member population. And so we're providing products that enable them to better engage those populations. And I think what we've found it's true across most industries, but what I think makes it uniquely hard in health is once someone disengages, to the example you gave, given your expertise and what you do every day to help people live healthier, once they disengage, it's really hard to get them back. And so how can you better leverage data and predictive indicators to know who are the people that may disengage weeks or even months in advance, and then serve up the right content to be proactive about keeping them on track versus reacting to, hey, this person's been disengaged, they missed 3 appointments, or God forbid, they had a medical event because they weren't taking care of themselves in the optimal way.
Gotcha. And we talked a bit about it, like, but from my end, I can talk about the clinical part, but I think it's just much beyond that when it comes to engagement. From your perspective, like, how big is patient or customer engagement problem in this sector? how big it is, like what are the dimensions? Are we talking about
Yep.
only the hospital? Are we talking about only the clinic? Are we talking about like fitness app tracker? Like tell me a bit more about it, or the
Yeah.
audience a bit more about it. Like how big is this?
It is very big. So health to us and health organization to us can be a few different buckets. So within healthcare, we work with national and regional health plans that want to engage their members, basically get the right members into the right care programs, using them more for longer. So think higher cost, harder to engage populations like musculoskeletal, diabetes, kidney disease, COPD, the cardio different programs. Then you've got the actual health systems and providers or clinics that are trying to provide care either at a certain site or through virtual care. Then you've got what we would call wellness, which means it could be a health club that has a membership and you need to keep going to. It could be in-home connected fitness. It could be nutrition coaching. And then we also serve pharma, where there are certain health populations that you're trying to maybe engage to go into a clinical trial for a rare disease, or there's a vaccine that you think if people take for polio before they're at the age of X, it's going to benefit them and society. And so that full realm, you need engagement in different ways. And usually you need engagement over extended periods of time to get the best results, meaning as an organization, how do you maximize both financial returns and more importantly, how do you optimize health outcomes?
True. So we talk about the problem, and I agree with you. I think like it is a huge problem when it comes when you look at the different aspects of health and how a patient or a customer can be engaged. Now I want to shift gears a bit. So we talked about the problem. Can you tell me a bit about the solution? What are you guys doing at V? How are you trying to solve this problem?
Yeah, so I think we're taking a unique approach to this. I'm the most biased person in the world. We'll see if you and the audience agree. So you mentioned earlier, there's lots of different clinical scenarios and why it's so hard in healthcare. And so what we don't do is we would never show up to a health plan, a health system, a provider, a clinic and say, hey, we can help you use your claims and RX or your data or provide better care management for a certain disease state. That's not what we do. Where we focus on is how can we be an orchestration layer that sits between de-identified data on your patients or members, data we license on 96% of the US population in a completely de-identified way across where are people going, what are they searching, what are they doing online, what are people doing in their everyday physical and digital lives. And we don't match them because we need to stay compliant, and that's not how we operate. But you can look at different segments and cohorts and have an understanding of how someone's behavior within a diabetes management program or within a clinic might be connected to some things they may or may not be doing in their everyday life. And so we take in data that's de-identified on the actual patients. We enrich it with data we license on 96% of the US population. And we have 162 million unique individuals in the United States going through Vee's system every single day. And so where we sit is in between that de-identified member data, the consumer behavior data we license, and existing tools, channels, and teams. So that means it could be a care management platform, a nurse dashboard, it could be Salesforce, HubSpot, it could be your Google account or your Meta account to do advertising, or it could be an engagement specialist or a coach. And what we help our partners and customers do is get really predictive, precise, and personalized within triggers that will help them get out ahead of disengagement or activate members in a much more efficient way, ultimately surfacing which member ID, the who, with what content. Is it email template 3 that you may have to intervene with someone, or email template 1 or text message 2? So what channel, what content, and what time? And we plug into the existing tools to either automate an Instagram ad, a phone call from a contact center, an email from a nurse, etc., in a fully configurable and transparent way. So we're a verticalized AI for these health organizations between their data, 161 million members, our data enriched 96%, and their existing team and tools to drive the behaviors around engagement.
Gotcha. And so we talked about like the solution, but I don't think you guys have like one product, right? Like maybe a couple of product or three products through going through your website. Can you talk to me about the products and like let's make it simple. Like who is your ideal customer that you think V can help them?
Yeah, so I think the examples I gave you earlier in healthcare would be health plans, disease and care management, health systems, clinics, and let's give an example. So V is a platform and it's
Mm-hmm.
but it's modular. So let's say you're more focused on activating new patients, and let's say you've got a clinic and what you do is you focus on preventative heart scans. Let's say that's your goal. And
Mm-hmm.
today you get some referrals, you get some word of mouth, but it can be hard to get people to go in for preventative heart scans if they don't have like a family history or they don't have any symptoms. But we might be able to know people who it would really benefit based on those that they look like from a data perspective to come in and get one. And so traditionally what would be done today is, let's say you have a clinic that's doing these preventative heart scans. You might look 15 miles around your clinic and you might look at certain demographics, certain age, genders, maybe socioeconomic or income, and you look at it at a persona level, right? Kind of think like a heat map. Where V could help is we would, and let's say today you're deploying ads on Google and Facebook and maybe Hulu, saying, hey, you should come in and get a preventative heart scan. It could save your life. It could help you get out ahead of any issues and you'll live a longer, happier life.
Mm-hmm.
What we would do is we would say, okay, we would work with that clinic and we would say, help us understand what you know, who those personas are, but also help us understand known or hypothesized leading indicators of what those types of people do in their everyday life. So where do they eat? Do we want, like, if people go to fast food a lot, if we can see their mobile ID, it's all de-identified, but we see mobile ID 1234 has fast food 6 times a week, they're above 40 years old, and or do they search like chest pain, or do they maybe they think they're buying over-the-counter drugs for gastrointestinal issues, which can often be misconstrued maybe for what could be symptoms that are cardiac related. We're not the experts, as you can already hear in my example, on the disease state. What we are experts in is how can we triangulate de-identified behaviors of prospective patients around that area in real time, so you can serve that mobile ID or that IP address who we never re-identified, what we would call a persuadable, a higher propensity individual to need that service. How do we target them on Instagram, which, let's say that in the example I gave, they're already on Instagram 7 to 9 p.m. on weeknights and they look at a ton of sports content. Well, let's serve up the right ad to that person, telling them why a preventative heart scan could change their life. And so that's just one example of how you almost take a scalpel versus shotgun approach to find the right people based on their everyday life versus the basic sort of age, gender, maybe of height and weight and some of the clinical indicators.
No, that's awesome. I think that also like has like implication on the population level. I think not only from preventive side. Well, actually, if you're talking about it, like preventive side, not only like on the heart or diabetes, even like on cancer side, right? Like people,
100%.
men when it comes to prostate cancer, man and woman when it comes to colon cancer, when it comes woman when it comes to breast cancer, especially right now, like I see this those people in my clinic, there is a higher prevalence of breast colon cancer in younger patients, and like I think we have to raise awareness. And the problem is like these heartening ones are like the young people who get the symptoms and they don't act on it because like they think they are young. What's going to happen? The problem is like they lack the right education. You can deliver the right education to them with the right advertisement.
Yep, you can ultimately drive behavior change. And so I think the differentiation we bring is we're not like taking a data set where we survey 30,000 people and say, oh, Rupin looks like X. People like Rupin do this. We don't know it's Rupin. We don't know it's Bob or Mary or Sue. We see mobile ID or IP address 1234, and we're able to triangulate not only their demographics and psychographics, but where they go. Do they go to a retail pharmacy a lot? Do they eat at McDonald's a lot? Do they search online like
Mhm.
chest pain? Did they purchase an at-home A1C kit, which could mean maybe they just became diabetic, or a hypertension monitor? And we're able to triangulate that without ever identifying that individual, allow that, in this example, that health system to serve up the right content on the right channel at the right time. And so that's really around activation. Health plans leverage that capability. It's not just like health systems or clinics. It could be disease and care management, but that's more on the activation side. The other area we call the second product is called Vee Engage. And what Vee Engage focuses on more is where you have a population that has been activated in some way. So they either are part of a health plan. I'll give that as an example. So they're an eligible member. And let's say they have 4 different chronic diseases. As we know, people on average who have one chronic disease have more than one, and that can be really hard for the healthcare provider and plan to serve. And so let's say this national health plan has both in-house solutions for oncology care, as well as third parties for virtual care for diabetes, MSK, et cetera. And so what we would do at V is we would say, hey, we would look at the de-identified historical data of members. We would never identify them. We would also enrich it with the data that we license. And what we'd want to do here is figure out, okay, we're not an expert on any of the disease states, again, that I just mentioned. There's teams that are experts in MSK, diabetes, COPD, et cetera. And they probably have content that if they're trying to take an eligible member to enroll, or someone who's enrolled that dropped off an engagement they want to win back, or they want to do an ancillary activation, they would upload their email templates, their phone call scripts, what they would say in a text message, what they might push in an app. We don't bring the playbook or the content. We provide this optimization framework that helps them use that data, predict enrollment propensity, utilization drop-off, attrition risk, and then rapidly test which templates work best for which type of people. So every single member and patient is getting a prediction around their engagement. So we're not predicting medical risk at all, right? We're not predicting what the care pathway should be. We're simply providing inputs on likelihood to enroll, engage, disengage, churn, et cetera. It can be layered on top of some sort of medical acuity model. And we have, I'm going to force your audience to nerd out a little bit. We have what's called a multi-arm bandit machine learning, which means instead of testing A versus B, where email template A versus B either wins or it loses, right? What a multi-arm bandit is, you can have A, B, C, D, E, F, G to infinity. And in the example where A won and B lost, B might be really good for 3% of the population that's in the Medicare group. So they're 65 plus, that has 4 chronic diseases. They live in the Northeast, and that email would really resonate with them better than A. So we don't want to throw it out. We just want to get really nuanced and specific with how we serve up the right content on the right channel at the right time. And so that multi-arm band is able to test and not throw things out, but basically match the right content and channel and timing to an individual who's predicted to enroll or not enroll or engage or disengage.
Awesome. I love it. It's very interesting, and it's I think it is, again. So I will tell you what's my problem right now, how evidence is generated in medicine, and I think it is created in a creative way. So right now, like how we do clinical trials or generate evidence is we always measure the average. We have a drug, let's try this drug on a 400 patients, and let's see on average what is the survival rate, right? We are always taking those average numbers, and then like we are using them on the entire population. But what if the patient or the person or even me or one of my family members was like those 2% or 3% who developed like the side effects? Or so what if like you are of those 2 or 3%? It makes a huge difference when it comes to the individual level, and that's what I like about this approach. Is because like there might be 3 people who are living north who might benefit from a screening test for a prostate cancer, let's say, or a screening test for a colon cancer, let's say. Why are we missing those? Why are we saying that, for example, the PSA is beneficial or not beneficial? No, maybe those patients need PSA, and that's very
Right.
unique.
I agree with you. And so I think a couple things there. So similar to what we described before, those triggers could be automated emails. They could be a call from a nurse. So we don't replace your CRM, your care management tool. We plug into them and provide.
You just tell me who's the patient, who's the right
we tell you who, and then we say, hey, you've got 3 email templates. 3 will work best for this person, 2 for this person. This person should be a phone call, and they're most likely to answer at 8 a.m. on a weekday than they are at noon on a weekend. It's obviously more nuanced than that, and it shows up in their existing care management platform. I think the other thing you hit on, Rupen, that's interesting is I was just on with the CIO of a regional health plan, a large regional health plan, and we finished a joint presentation with their team. We're about to roll out, and she asked, "Okay, so what do we expect the cost of care reduction to be?" And I didn't give her the answer I think she wanted, but I said, "Hey, like, Our job is not to reduce the cost of care. Our job is to help provide you a framework, a vertical AI, quote unquote, capability that's going to help you get more of the right people into the right program or service, using it more for longer. And if your program or your vendor's digital point solution does what they say it does, that's going to improve health outcomes. And obviously it does on the whole, but it's to varying levels. And so we try and stay out of we're in the business of behavior change and providing a tool to those that provide the care. And in the vast, vast majority of the time, more engagement equals better health outcomes.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I think like when it comes to any technology that is used in healthcare, I use in my mind frame to assess it two questions. Does it reduce the cost and does it improve the outcome? And it should not qualify both. So it's not always it reduces the cost. There are tons of technology that don't reduce the cost and they are used, but they improve outcome. And I think
Right.
this solution goes into the second point where it improves outcome by identifying the right patient with the right or the right customer, I would say, or the patient to the right solution and telling the provider, hey, you can match this with that and you can improve outcome for that person on the individual
Right.
level.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. How do we provide more personalized care?
More precision.
Yes, precision, predictive, and personalized, I think are the three words that we're always laser focused on. And it's hard to
Yeah.
do at scale, right? And so people conflate AI to ChatGPT and all sorts of things, but I think fundamentally it's how do you use historical data to predict future behavior? How do you create frameworks that use machine learning that even a really smart mathematician couldn't do? A computer needs to do it with a bunch of feedback loops that create triggers, whether they're automated or they're a task for a human being to do. And then I think we're moving towards this age of generative AI, which is what ChatGPT and some of these other platforms are. And you say, hey, create a diabetes management plan. That's generative AI. We're just before that. So what we focus on is helping to predict, be really precise and personalized with certain templates that our customers have in place today or use. So you get to ultimately a one-to-one engagement strategy for each and every patient or member.
I love that. That's very smart. And I was wondering, like, do you have like any example or case study that, without mentioning the names, like
Yeah,
any specific thing that comes to your mind? Yes, please go ahead.
I'd be happy to. So we work with a national health plan, and their goal was to better engage their MSK, the musculoskeletal population, and improved health outcomes, specifically around providing a digital therapeutic that would steer a certain percentage of patients that were getting unneeded spinal surgeries, would save on average $33,000 per patient per year that went through this digital therapeutic. And so the goal was to find the right people. Obviously, some people need spinal surgeries for sure, but there's some where the digital therapeutic might be enough. And both from a financial perspective, $33,000 per patient is a lot, but for those people, it's a much less invasive way to hopefully lower their back pain or reduce pain management. And so we don't provide the MSK solution. So the health plan partnered with this vended point solution. It was a third party. And we ran a trial. It was a peer-reviewed study where we basically got half the population, where V was providing the AI triggers to the nurses and to the CRM tool that was doing the communications. And we had a control group. So it was a little bit over 7,400 patients over a 9-month period. And in the V group versus the control group, they didn't get the emails didn't change. There wasn't more calls. It was just precise, predictive, and personalized triggers of who, what, how, and when. We were able to enroll, meaning of that desired eligible population, 34% more patients to start using it. They used the virtual care or the digital therapeutic 42% more, and they stayed in the program 38% longer.
Wow. And like those numbers are like solid. Like first, the number of patients, like you mentioned, 700?
7,000 patients.
7,000 patients. So that's a huge number when it comes to
Yeah.
like when it comes to clinical trials. I think if you have like 500 patients per arm, that's a great number. So 7,000, that's a great number. And the numbers that you are talking about, like they are really great. Like people like want like they work so hard to increase engagements or make people buy the digital therapeutic or subscribe to digital therapeutics. Like 10% increase, it's a huge it's a huge win. But here we're talking about the 30s and the 40s.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm picking a case study that makes us look best, and we've
Fair
got a
enough,
lot of
but
them.
still, like,
But
yeah,
the 10% is our minimum threshold. So we won't enter into a partnership, like I mentioned, unless we think we can move one of those key KPIs 10% or more, whether it's reducing the cost of enrollment or increasing enrollment 10%, increasing usage or utilization, increasing retention 10%. So that would be one example. I think the other example, more on the activation side or active acquisition side, we had a really interesting partner that it's a behavioral health clinic, and they focus on actually on children with different that require specialty forms of care. So it's an intensive in-person solution, and they've got about 15 locations. It's regional, and they were doing sort of the traditional persona marketing. They were trying to understand, like, okay, we have an agency, but like, how do we really understand who is going to hear about us, why they're going to bring their child? And actually, the person you're marketing to, quote unquote, in that case, is the parent, right? If I'm 4 years old,
correct.
I hope they're not on TikTok seeing an ad for that. Would be a different problem that we are not solving. Won't discuss today, but how do we understand what those parents are doing in their everyday lives that would make their child be very likely to be a good fit for these clinics? And so we found some really interesting things. So like some of the patients had autism and advanced forms of autism. So some of the products they would purchase around different types of headphones, different types of pillows, even certain types of sunglasses for overstimulation. There was another subgroup of behavioral patients that love entertainment centers. So the mobility data of these people going to like a Six Flags or a trampoline park or different things like that was exponentially higher than parents of kids that didn't have these types of conditions. And so what we were able to do was, again, we don't need the claims data or the RX. We were able to identify mobile IDs and IP addresses that we know are of a certain age. We can infer they may or may not have kids, but based on what they do, where they go, what they search for, what they purchase, then serve up on Google or on Facebook or on Hulu connected TV or snail mail or email if it's publicly available. Like, hey, do you know there's this intensive care solution for children that's down the road from you, and it's likely a covered benefit through your employer? And we were able to increase the number of patients that were enrolled at that facility by 47% without them spending any more money on marketing, just by being really precise with serving the right content to the right parents.
Awesome. I love it. This is very interesting, and I think we can talk about it non-stop. But just for the sake of time, I just want to shift gears and like now talk more about your experience. And for the entrepreneurs or physicians, want to be entrepreneurs who are listening, I do believe you have lots of experience to share, especially when it comes to marketing in healthcare. I find marketing in healthcare one of the hardest because you don't know who's your customer, you don't know who's your payer. Your customer is not your payer is not your user. And I want to grab your mind about this. So when it comes to marketing in healthcare and finding your customer, can you share tips on this?
So I'll be the first to say I'm more a business to business, a B2B guy, than someone who's like creating a branded email for a doctor to send their patients. So I think where I might have more valuable expertise would be on how to apply data to patient experience or patient communications or patient activation. And I think to your question, which is the right one, how do I find my patients? I think what's changing with technology and data that's available is historically people have kind of looked at claims and RX if they have access to it or certain personas or demographics. And that can be okay. That's what we call lookalike data. Like people like Rupen may do this or may do that. But especially if you're looking for more needle in the haystack, if you're not like marketing someone to be, if you would want to be their primary care, if it's some sort of specialized service line, it's much harder to find those people. And so I think what's happening, because the availability of data, and there's HIPAA compliant and FTC compliant ways to triangulate different consumer behaviors of what they're doing in their everyday lives, to actually, even better than some of the medical data, which has been traditionally used, or demographics data, understand the behaviors that may make someone have a higher likelihood to be a good patient for you. And so that's kind of how, when we go talk to, whether it's a pharma company, like who's doing a clinical trial on a biopharma in rare disease, they've got incredible teams that do a ton of research on all the medical and clinical data. And again, we don't know anything about HAE or ATTR or any sort of these rare disease. But but they know a ton about what these people may do in their everyday lives, and we can bring that actual versus digital twin data. And so I think whether it's V or elsewhere, thinking sort of beyond the scope of medical data towards consumer behavior data and trying to triangulate what these people do, you can have an even better precision level in activating them.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And when it comes to, you mentioned that you have more experience in B2B. So, and I think you also mentioned that one of the earlier today you had a meeting with someone who asked you about, does this reduce the cost or no? So, from your experience, when it comes to B2B marketing in healthcare, what do you think hospitals or healthcare plans or insurance companies are looking for when they want to implement technology in their systems? What question you usually get asked when you have those meetings?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting and very complex ecosystem and layers of incentives, right? And so, as you know very well, there's different business models. There's fee for service, there's value-based care, there's a lot in between. And I think if you think about engagement, there's really, we're oversimplifying, there's two ways that engagement can drive dollars. One is if it's a fee for service or it's a per engaged member per month in a digital therapeutic, either the payer, whether it's the health plan or it's an employer or it's out of pocket, more money comes in for use of the service or for an appointment, right? And you want more appointments or more use equals more money. The second piece is affordability, is how do we reduce cost of care? And I think people are looking for solutions, which we don't provide the solution. We help solutions be more engaging, but they're looking for solutions, whoever's at risk for those medical costs, to get people into them that will reduce those costs of care. And so when we think about return on investment, which is how we kind of underwrite what we do with our partners, to see, to my earlier note, if we increase enrollment 10% and program completion 10%, what is the ROI? Do you get paid more money? Does your profitability go up because you're providing the service? Does it reduce cost of care? Are you able to underwrite as a health plan, for example, if you get 10% more people into this telephonic kidney disease management program, that it's going to reduce cost of care $2,000 per patient, something like that. And so we go through that process because I think at the end of the day, just like healthcare is a business and it's a very personal one, and the way it's structured in the US, it's a business. And so our mission is to help people live healthy and active lifestyles, but because we're business to business, we're B2B, we work with those organizations to say, hey, we can help you with these key metrics, help us understand what that would mean for you financially.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think like it is one of the complex, it is not like any other business because like there are many layers of complexity, but I think it's although it is a business, but
Yep,
it's a business with a mission. So that what makes it really different. And I think it is a
agreed.
cool and nice business to be in. And I want to also, since you work in teams and you have experience and you are advisor of different companies, I want to pick your mind on the advising part. I want to pick your mind on building teams part. So when it comes to building teams, imagine like I'm a health tech startup CEO and I'm looking for ideas and opinion on building a team. First, like how to hire the right people, how to build the right team. Is it based on experience? Is it based on drive, mission, knowledge on healthcare, university,
Yeah.
school, or graduate? What do you think is like your experience has been?
So I think if you're in the 0 to 1 phase, right, where you have an idea, maybe you have a minimum viable product, an MVP, and you're trying to figure out who to hire, I would start first with when to hire. And I think the more you can do before you raise significant money and grow the team out to validate and invalidate your hypotheses on how your solution uniquely solves a problem that customers are going to be willing to pay for, it's really hard to find product market fit. And so who you hire is incredibly critical, but you could hire an A+ team. And if you don't have product market fit, if you don't have a solution to a problem that's unique that the customer is willing to pay for, having an A+ team isn't going to solve for that. And so I think if you're an entrepreneur or you're part of an early stage team, I would spend 99% of your time on finding the most low friction ways to validate and iterate, because it's not going to just be A to B, right? How do you find product market fit? And there's tons of content that's out there. I've written some stuff on it as well, on how do you accelerate that process and ask the right questions, do the right discovery. And so let's say you have found product market fit, you have a solution to a problem, let's say with 5 customers who are paying, and you're thinking about how to grow out the team. I think at an early stage, the type of people you need, experience is critical. You want someone who's going to be very hands-on. And so I'll give an example. Someone on paper, let's say they've been at, I'm a Boston-based guy, so let's say they've been at Mass General on the digital innovation team for the last 20 years, and they manage a 12-person team. They may be the perfect person, but I would ask questions to make sure that the role that they're now taking on as the first hire, let's say, to go out and start to bring you into new health systems, it's going to be really different. You're going to get no said to you a lot of times. You're going to need to be doing sort of full stack, like as we like to say at V, like from our early days, like you're cleaning the toilets and you're also writing the CEO pitches, right? And so those types of people, they need to have a certain mindset, a certain culture. Maybe they need to be at a certain point in their lives. And I think it's on the company to ask the questions and find the right people, both from a culture and from what are they going to do every day. And it's hard. It's really hard, I think, for people being hired and the company to find that match.
Gotcha. And when it comes to working with startups, like you have also experience in this, I want to pick your brain on it. You work with different startups or companies and you're advisor on many boards. How do you, or what advice do you give when it comes to personal branding? How do you make yourself desirable for the physicians who are listening and they want to be part of those startups? How do you find those startups and how you make yourself desirable for them?
So, and maybe this isn't the answer you're looking for. I don't do much online with like LinkedIn or anything like that. I don't do a ton of the conference circuit. I believe I call it surface area. I believe if you meet people who are working on interesting things and bringing value and you help them, this stuff kind of happens organically. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but I think it's really, I will I'm selective with conversations that I take because there's only so much time in the day. But if there's someone who's working on something interesting, if they want help with their go-to-market strategy, if they have a new technology that they're thinking about bringing to market or scale, I'll talk to them. I will offer any thoughts or feedback, other introductions I can make, ways I can help. And if that organically leads to like, Spencer, this worked or didn't work, and then it kind of happens organically, versus I think if you say, try to brand yourself, hey, I'm on 12 advisory boards, that, and you look for it, I don't think you'll find those organic fits. I also think both for the company and for these individuals, whether they're a physician or a business person, that period of mutual discovery, when you get to know each other, you help one another, you go through a couple of cycles together without thinking about dating or getting married from a board or advisory perspective, it helps you figure out, is this going to be a good fit or not? Because that's going to come out very soon anyways. And so the advisory boards or any organizations I've gotten involved with have been through sort of that organic process of trying to help. Sometimes that's led to me joining advisory boards. Sometimes they become a future customer. Sometimes we become friends. But I think that's the best way I would do it, versus I don't think you're going to write some LinkedIn post with the right hashtag that's going to get the attention of a CEO. But that's my personal opinion.
No, I completely agree. I think personal relationships comes well above social media. Social media, it's a tool, right? It is a
Yeah.
tool. Sometimes like it might increase your exposure, it might lead to connection, but eventually, like even when I work with startups, like I tell them like we're not gonna do anything, we're not gonna sign anything unless we work together for 2 months. Let's know each other, like, and then we can decide
Yep.
like where this goes. Yeah, I agree. Awesome.
Yep.
That brings me to the end of my questions. I think this is it. Thank you so much for being here today.
I appreciate you having me. And obviously, I'm being a little hypocritical because I would say your podcast is the number one way someone should brand themselves. That's why I'm here today. But in all seriousness, thank you for having me. And this is the type of stuff myself and more importantly, V are excited about on a professional, but also just a societal level. I think we have a huge opportunity with technology to help those that provide care, programs, et cetera. And I think your platform to get the word out on that technology and how people can use it is critical. So I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much, my friend. Appreciate it.